speak to us, even though you can't show your video?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. So it'd be great to just find out who you are and why you're invited to come here and what your motivation is and how we can support you today.
I run a think tank which is based on the value of compassion, and I'm increasingly being asked for my view on where compassion fits into AI. So I'm just interested in learning more and hearing your thoughts, really. I'm here as a recipient rather than I'm not sure how much knowledge I have to give at this point.
Well, everybody's here to give what they can give and receive what they would like to receive. So that's absolutely wonderful. I assume because I see Charles nodding that you and Charles already know each other.
We do. Well, we're in touch with each other, yes.
Oh,
Connected, absolutely, yeah.
wonderful. Charles, would you like to give a quick introduction just for those who will be watching the recording?
Yes, of course.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Rhonda, and lovely to meet you, Jennifer. Because I don't think we've met. Well, I was going to say face to face. We're almost meeting face to face now. Um, and Yeah, I've been attending these sessions with Rhonda since she started them way back last October, I guess. And then there was a sort of new series started in the beginning of the year. For me, they've been fantastic in really starting from a position, as you were saying, Jennifer, of being very green and knowing very little about AI to becoming used to the amazing range of tools, and not just tools but ways that AI can help us in all sorts of different ways for doing what I'm interested in doing, which is to do with values in general, including compassion and all the other wonderful human values. So I've found them incredibly interesting. I don't have a particular question to explore today, although I am still interested in hearing more about, Rhonda, about your experience at the latest AI for Good conference in UN conference in Geneva, where everyone got together and all sorts of different innovations, explorations, collaborations, and new tools were unveiled or alluded to. So that's really, I think, my main concern through the year, and still is how to use AI to help communicate with people, really, in terms of both the World Values Day campaign, which I'm responsible for coordinating, and in terms of other values activities, and indeed, other activities generally. I think communication is a wonderful opportunity for us to use smart tools to help us communicate, and I'd love to explore that more. I mean, there are just so many of them, I know, but there are always new ones coming onto the scene. So sorry, that's a bit long-winded, but that's my interest.
Well, thank you very much, Charles. And Jennifer, since we haven't met before, as Charles just mentioned, thank you for the segue. I attended the AI for Good Summit of the United Nations for the second time this year in Geneva, Switzerland, in person, and was fascinated for 4 days, and last year for 2 days, about all the things that are going on now in the world of AI and how the United Nations is trying to make sure for the 8th year in a row now that AI is going in the right direction and that it's being used for good. And I mean, we all know about the world. There always, anything you take, there's two sides to the coin. There's the good side and there's the not so good side. But all of us here in the room, and I'm sure those who will be watching, oh, nice to see you on camera now, Jennifer. All of us who are watching this recording as well will know that the whole point of values in our world is to bring all the other things we do into alignment with who we are. And we do that with our businesses, we do that with organizations we work with, we do that in our families, and now we have a new place to explore that what we're doing with AI. And so the idea of, we started this last year during World Values Day, where I did some sessions just to introduce people, and they said this is a very important topic. We shouldn't just do it on one day, which is why we now do it monthly, and we're so happy you can be joining us. And the other thing we said is that because this is moving so quickly, we need to make sure that people have the opportunity to come, to ask the questions they want to ask, to engage in discussions where we see what we're doing with values. Jennifer, you said with compassion in your case. What are we doing, and what is AI able to help us with so we can make a bigger impact? Because AI in and of itself is an entity in the world, but what we're using it for, and just as we're now on a call on Zoom, what are we doing to make sure that AI can support us in moving our values and what we're doing in the values world forward? So now that you can say something else, Jennifer, you've had a quick introduction, maybe you'd have something else that you'd like to add, or a question you'd like to ask, or something we should now look together at as a group today.
Thank you both. I think the first thing to say is that although our primary focus is on compassion, compassion brings with it a basket of other values like honesty, like courage, like integrity, and all of those things. So compassion is, if you like, part of a solar system of other values, and a lot of our work at the moment in the UK is on the issue of truth in the political space. So I have two questions. One is, what sort of, I have three actually, because there's an organization in the States called AI for Good, and I'm wondering if they're related to the UN theme in some way. No problem if you don't know the answer to that, run by someone called Charles, and I can't remember his surname. The second thing is, one of the things that we look at is where government regulation is needed. So I'm interested in exploring what safeguards might be necessary, because what we often don't do in government is use the harm principle. We tend to do things until they've been proven harmful, and by then it's the horse has bolted, the stable doors are open. So I'm interested in what preemptive mechanisms we should be looking at in terms of regulation and safeguarding. So that's one question. And my next question was, you referred to AI as an entity, and I'm interested in whether it is just a tool that we can use to amplify and work more effectively, or whether there actually is an entity element to it, and are we dealing with something that we need to be careful of in any way? So those are my immediate thoughts. I don't know if that's helpful.
Okay, that's very helpful. I have looked up what you just mentioned while you were speaking, and I have found a gentleman called Charles Ovink when I put in AI for Good US. And Charles Ovink, if that's the gentleman you meant, is part of the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs. And he is also looking at all of these things with AI, and he is part of the United Nations. So if that's the same Charles that you and I are then talking about, then he is part of the UN as well. And you're on mute, Jennifer, so I can't hear you at the moment. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I'll have a look at that. That was just more of a curiosity whether it was the same person or not. Thank you.
Okay, I will put the link in the chat, so you will have an opportunity to check on this gentleman afterwards.
Thank you.
Charles, any thoughts from your side on the other 2 points that Jennifer has brought up?
Just remind me of the other 2 points. Sorry.
Well, Jennifer was talking about the idea of I used the word entity instead of tool or whatever, and whether we should be doing that. And tell me again, I love the thing about the stable door is open and the horse is now escaping. Can you say that again? That was an absolutely wonderful way to express it, but to make sure that I've got the right.
So the question was, what forms of regulations and safeguards should we be looking to introduce? I mean, we primarily work in the UK, but we do work in other countries as well. So what safeguards should governments be looking to ensure that harm isn't caused?
Mm-hmm.
If we look at the damage that, for example, that algorithms are doing, if we'd known about that in advance, we might have put regulation in, and before it completely dominates everything, what should we be thinking about?
Mhm. Your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, I think this is it's incredibly difficult and technical area, isn't it? I've been involved in lots of conferences and discussions, and as you both probably have been in this whole area. I think that on the one hand, it's difficult, isn't it? It's been difficult to regulate for instance, the internet in general, the whole social media movement in particular. But I think it's important that we try to do it. It's difficult because it's constantly evolving, and all regulation is backward looking, and also has unintended consequences very often, and isn't necessarily even effective at what it does achieve in what it does achieve. But yes, I think that I mean, I have a lot of worries about how AI can be used for bad as opposed to for good. The problems, as we all know, are that my definition of good and bad is going to be probably different from your definitions, although probably not that much, but it's going to be a lot different from those who look at it from other perspectives in other cultures. So it comes down to really who can we trust to regulate that.
Can I just say that I don't see things in terms of good or bad? I'm not sure that's a helpful framing, because it involves subjective measures, as you've said. I'm interested in foreseeable harm that can be prevented or needs to be prevented. So that's the thing that I'm most interested in. We were very involved in the online harms bill, for example, which didn't go as far as we would have wanted. So I'm wondering what the equivalents are in this area.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to define change good for harm, or not, sorry, not harm, preventing harm, then that's fine. I mean, that makes a tighter definition of good, or you can drop, as you say, drop the word entirely. But yes, I think there is interesting work being done in it. I'm not quite sure how active it is. Have you been in contact with the Alan Turing Institute, for instance, in the UK? They've got a sort of team, AI and ethics team there. Mari Aitken is one who came along to a talk that a discussion that I helped host last year, I think. And there's a lot of people at work on this. I haven't seen much evidence. I mean, Jennifer, maybe you've been producing stuff on how exactly we go about regulating AI in a way that
my question was, what are the things that we need to be regulating about? What are the most harmful aspects, and what needs regulating? So I guess I'm just, with my beginner's mind, curious about what, obviously one can seek to ban the use of deep fakes, but that's I want to kind of go beyond that and understand what regulations we need. And it may not be, the purpose of this group, but it was a question that I have.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
yeah, the purpose of this group is to discuss the things that people bring into the group. So yes, of course, that's a very valid question. I'm sorry, Charles, I interrupted.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely, it's a totally valid question, and I think my answer to it is slightly inadequate, because I think what I come up with is probably what everyone comes up with when they write books on AI and ethics, AI and AI on our society, AI in the future, which is the fear is that AI becomes no longer subject to human intervention, really. And human intervention is by itself a subject which is open to debate in what way do we intervene. But the real worry is that AI no longer responds to human intervention. There have been various worrying instances, haven't there, over the last year or two, where it seems that the an AI system has resisted being switched off. For instance, I think that was in the news not very long ago. I can't remember. I can't give you the reference, but it was only a few weeks ago. That is very worrying. So regulations that actually are able to ensure, if that's possible, that AI systems actually are under our control. Now, who is us? But a human creator, I guess, and sound as though they're going along the right lines. My concern, really, I have to say, Jennifer, and as I suspect yours is too, is that more fundamental than that even, or as fundamental as that, which is that when we design AI tools, AI systems, there are in the algorithms in the programming, they are conscious of or observing certain human values, and values like compassion, not harming other individuals, the point you just made. And we could probably draw up a list of that. We would argue about the list, we'd argue about the definition of all those things, and we'd argue about all sorts of things. But I think that's where it's worthwhile to try and intervene. And that does mean, I suppose, that AI, one of the fastest developing areas of AI is in military applications, isn't it? Because there's innovation happening now at breakneck speed around the world on that, precipitated and catalyzed by conflict in various parts of the world, obviously, and preparations for conflict as well, sadly. And how do we actually apply those sort of principles that AI should be based on in some way, human values or compassion or whatever, how we want to define? How do we get that applied realistically to military software? And the answer is probably not going to be able to, because these systems are explicitly developed to actually cause harm, both in terms of physical objects and in terms of human beings and human lives. So sorry, I haven't really got an answer to that, but I think it's absolutely important.
Let me add some thoughts.
I don't think anyone has the answer, because I've listened as a non-specialist. I'm not a professional ethicist. I'm not an professional AI person, but I don't hear anyone coming out with any coherent views on that. Sorry, there are coherent views on that, but I can't see, I can't identify views which are getting traction and are likely to be developed into a sort of universal global code of AI ethics or AI regulation, and who would supervise that too? Are we confident in the UN, to be honest? Are we confident in our national governments? National government has limited powers to regulate any of these things anyway. They're supranational. AI is supranational. It's not going to be subject to any national or even regional regulation, not easily anyway. Look at the difficulties the EU have had in trying to regulate the internet.
Let me just add some things from what you've said, Charles, and hopefully this will be helpful for you, Jennifer. You're both in Britain. Currently, there's the world's biggest military equipment show running in London.
Yep.
And yesterday there was something on the German news about a German company who was there. And the nice gentleman who was talking to the reporters was saying he was showing the things that their technology was doing. But the interesting thing he said toward the end of the interview was, we all need to be coming to shows like this, not just to show what we're doing, but because we are trying very hard, at least within the European specter, of working together to make sure that what we are doing is aligned. So that for me was fascinating coming from somebody who's in that field, but there is some kind of, even though what they're doing is something that maybe we would all call harmful, using your word, Jennifer, it's still something that they are looking at as well as being aligned and doing things together with other organizations. So I was interested, that was an interesting thing to hear. The second thing, of course, is that the EU has been the first organization to put out an AI Act. Even European companies like Mercedes-Benz and a lot of American companies are saying, well, we're not going to subscribe to this because, you know, this is not for us and you aren't the ones who can regulate things. But we know from the past, things like GDPR also started in Europe and now they are recognized internationally as well. So who's to say that this isn't the foundation, at least for something coming up? But I was speaking to a gentleman who is very much into the ethics of AI the other day, and he said to me, well, you know, the biggest problem is, and it's the thing that happens with everything in the world, there's the commercial part of what is happening, and there are companies located wherever they are, most of them at the moment in America, but not only, who are putting lots of money and effort into making something and doing it for business reasons, meaning to make profit. And then there are other people like governmental officials, as you were mentioning, Jennifer, who are there to be regulating things. And it's been that way as long as I've been in business, which is about 40 years, is every time the government tries to catch up to what is happening in the commercial world, there is always that gap. So the business people are off and running and doing their thing and getting things all set up, and government is always trying to catch up and figure out how they're going to regulate it. And that's something we've seen in so many parts of the world. And this is something that's been going on a lot longer than just, you know, the internet or computers or whatever.
Of course, yeah, sugar,
Yeah.
food, all of that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so I guess what I'm trying to identify is what are the things that regulators need to be focused on given what we know and what we can see coming down the pipeline.
Well, and the thing is, what do we know at the moment changes, and I would say at the moment it's changing monthly.
Absolutely. That's why I said what, you know, what that's coming down the pipeline, because we can't just kind of stand horror struck. It's, you know, we can see what may come, we can see harms that may arise. So what are the things that most concern you? Possibly is a better way of framing the question.
Okay, I was going to say, because the things that may arise are all of those things that I've noticed in my own life, especially, and in my business, that I've always said, isn't it interesting that the things that I worked on 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, nobody talks about anymore? And how to keep up with the change for me is the first most important thing, because the point of regulating in hindsight, you know, we have this now, so now we have to regulate it. I think one of the biggest things in the world that's difficult to do is regulate for the future. And that's the way I see your question being framed, Jennifer, is how do we figure out what's coming in the next 3 months, 3 years, whatever, to be able to set regulations now for what's coming. And I think that's always been a challenge, and it's a huge challenge at the moment, because if we see what has developed even since I was in Geneva, that was in July, all of the things that have changed within that time frame and how accessible all of those things are. I was reading something yesterday and showed it to a client, and it was, how do you talk about things? It said, when Henry Ford made his first car, he didn't call it a car, but what people had asked for was a faster horse. So what he did was, he didn't call it a faster horse. He gave it a new name. He called it a horseless carriage. That was the first name for it. And this was a thing about languaging that I was looking at. But the interesting thing is, what is it and what do we call it? And if we're regulating something, at least what I know about regulation, and then organizations I've been in action with here in Germany, for example, when we try to regulate things and we give the name to something that we currently know at the moment, that is not going to regulate what's coming even 2 months from now. And I think for me, that's the biggest challenge we have in the moment as global citizens, and the fact that you mentioned that national governments or regional governments like the EU are trying to do things. The important thing is not everybody's trying to do the same things. So what the Chinese are doing, and I heard wonderful talks by Chinese people when I was in Geneva, what the Chinese are doing are on a totally different tangent to a certain extent than what we're doing here in the West. So if you're going to get something that regulates, how are you going to make sure that everybody actually wants to buy into it? It's even difficult to do it in the EU, and even European companies are against what the EU is trying to regulate. So for me, it's a huge conundrum that we're in at the moment, and it's a fascinating question. I'm glad you brought it up, and I certainly don't have an answer, but just wanted to throw in those possibilities as part of what we should be looking at.
Thank you. Yes, and I completely concur with the difficulties. And unfortunately, I've got to go at 9:30. I'm not sure how long
Fine.
the call is.
Normally a half an hour. That's
It is.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're based in Germany. Where in Germany are you based?
Well, near Cologne. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know about the Political Tech Summit?
No, I don't. Thank you. I'll take that up.
It's I can introduce you to the guy who runs it if you want, but it's
Excellent.
it happens every well, last year was the first year, and it has a lot of people who are trying to harness AI and apply it in ways that benefit the political space. So that's a group of people who are working very much in this area of innovation and trying to harness the power of AI to deliver positive outcomes. So I guess that's where my learning curve began, and they had, people from Google and all over the world, probably a bit similar to your UN conference, but yeah, so no.
Excellent. Well,
really,
tomorrow I will be sending an email with an overview of everything that happened in all 3 sessions today, just so you know.
great.
And a chance to get the access to this recording as well. And I will make a note of that. And you can, when I get the email tomorrow, you can just send me back the link. Yeah, that'll be
Will
the
do.
easiest thing, that you don't have to worry about it then.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming and spending time with us today.
It's
And
so nice to meet you both. And Charles, really nice
Meet
to
you,
see
yeah.
you face to face. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy, and hope to see you at another session soon.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.